Okay, welcome everybody to the October Tech Talk with LodgeiT. We're going to see a bit of a demo of this product, which is it's owned, run by QBO, but it actually works with a lot of other software. So it's not just about lodgement for QBO. So we're going to have a demo of that. We've had a few little tech issues, so we're just going to try and sort that out. And Andrew, I'm going to have to make you, there we go. All right, you should be right now. So we've got Andrew and Aaron here, and we're going to start off with Aaron. Let's just let Andrew come in so we can say good day to him. G'day.
Myself and morning all of you.
Welcome.
Good morning.
It's afternoon for some of us, morning for others.
Oh yes, of course.
You're calling in from Western
Australia. I'm from Western Australia.
Yep. Okay, all right, folks. I think we're ready to go now. So let me hand over to Aaron, and Aaron's going to do a bit of a talk, and then hand over to Andrew. We will have time for questions at the end. So as usual, if you've got questions, put them in the chat box or the Q&A. And if we can, we'll do it throughout, but we may not be able to, just with tech issues, and some of this is recorded already. So we will do all the questions at the end if we can't do it throughout the presentation as we usually do. So let me hand over to Aaron. Thank you thanks both for joining us, and yeah, let's launch into it.
Not a problem at all. Thanks, Joe. And good morning / afternoon to everyone who's joined us. Andrew, Joe, yourselves both. Thanks for having us. I'm going to be running a little bit of we've broken it up into a couple of different parts for the purposes of today. Obviously, things that are relevant to the industry and things like that. We've got Andrew will be talking. We've recorded a couple of these things as well, just to avoid some of the snafus that can happen with a live connection. So please forgive us. Any kind of questions you've got, please send them through at the end. You know what I mean? And we'll do our best to answer those, and we'll follow up with those that we can't answer on the day. I'm just going to share my screen, and let me know when you can see that. So sorry about that. And there we go. So can everyone see that? That's okay. It's coming through loud and clear. Awesome. All right, that's great. As Joe mentioned, obviously we're going to be touching on a few different things. I'll be obviously spending probably not an incredible amount of time, but just touching on some stuff with QuickBooks that's happening in the product and things like that. A few different tips and tricks and things like that to make your workflow a little easier, reduce the clicks, I think is probably a good way to put it. And then what we'll be doing as well, is we'll be going through LodgeiT with Andrew, obviously, for the majority of it. And then what we've got a little bit on product roadmap and things like that from both sides. Obviously, some focus areas, what's coming in the future. And then at the end, we'll break for Q&A as well. So I hope that's going to be valuable for you all. I'm sure it will. There'll be a few things that everyone can take away, but I'm looking forward to kind of walking you through that. So what I'll do is I'll just run through this is just going to be, 10 to 12 minutes on some stuff with QuickBooks and some stuff that we've been working on, to help ease workflow, and some focus areas that we'll be focusing on heavily from a product point of view. Then what we'll be doing is running through LodgeiT as well. So what I'll do, I'm just going to mute my camera for a second. Let's see if I can grab that. But what I'll do is I'll just play this one here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just love to jump straight in. So as mentioned just before, we'll be covering a couple of recent updates, or not so recent sometimes, but you never know. Sometimes these things do get lost in translation. What I'll be doing is cover over on a couple of different things that have been released in the last, say, 12, maybe a little bit longer, even the last 6 months, on, with the focus to kind of increase advisor workflows and advisor efficiencies, of which everyone who's attending today, I'm sure, is pretty interested in. So it's kind of with the view, really, to increase your confidence in how to navigate, QuickBooks Online, how to reduce clicks, which is always a bit of a pain point in any kind of software product. The less clicks, the better off you are. What I'll be doing today is I'll be showing you a couple of different things. So I'll be walking through a little bit on one of my client subscriptions here called Kazakh Gardening. So let me just fire that one up. Now, a couple of things I'll be running through is going to be a new feature or newish feature in the banking screen that not a lot of people are aware of, and that's going to help you be able to batch code things very efficiently. I'll be running through up the top here Books Review and Client Overview a little bit, just to show you what that is and the role that plays as well. There's actually a big focus on developing some of the functionality in here as well, which I'll be covering off in some of the product updates, so stay tuned for that. There's a couple of things obviously in the accountant tools that I'm going to run through as well, which are just little workflow hacks, and it's all to do with really just reducing the click volume while you're working within QuickBooks. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll kick off by just showing you a little bit around Books Review. So Books Review has been around for probably a little while now. There is a couple of, the purpose of it, probably I should start with, is really just to give you a bit of a top level view, right, for a period. You'll find that we used to run this as a monthly workflow, and recently we've actually included it as a quarterly one, right? So that's actually changed. So one of the big benefits of using something like this is it's a bit of a stopgap where you can figure out and very quickly identify different types of flagged transactions, uncategorized, without pays, without GST, undeposited funds, unapplied payments. One of the really cool things here is you can actually create your own. Not a lot of people know this, so bear with me, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware after we walk out of today's session. But a lot of the reports in QuickBooks, so if I go, I'll just open that in a new tab, and I'll show you what I mean when I say this. You'll find that a lot of the reports in QuickBooks, and this also overlaps with my a little bit of a bit that I was going to run on and less clicks. Basically what it is it's a lot of it is run via the URL. So if you can see that URL up the top there, that's a huge URL, right? And unfortunately, it's kind of good luck trying to replicate that manually. Good thing is you don't really have to, right? So one of the things we can actually do here is if we're going to customize a general ledger report, we want to add in some new fields and things like that. What we can do is go to, add in GST, tax code perhaps, things like that. What that'll do is it'll click out. It's a bad example in this one because my date range is a little bit off. But what I will do is I'll go right, we'll run that report there. There we go. So we've got a bit of data in there now, right? And you'll see now that's just a general ledger report with GST tax codes and things like that, which is pretty cool. This would be useful, right? We can customize this even further by going to customize and sorting out different, filters and fields and, displaying one or many or all accounts, things like that. Obviously, you probably don't want a 47-page general ledger report, but that's probably beside the point for the purpose of this. My point that I'm going to show you here is you can actually take this URL, right, which has had our customizers applied to it, jump into Books Review, and create a workflow, which is pretty neat. So if I actually want to, let's just say that report, that specific report, I want to use for a few different clients, right? And that's part of my workflow that I use to review. I might go add down here, and I'll go item. I'll be like, okay, so what's this one called? This is the GL report with GST and tax code, right? Now, if I'm doing quarterly, then what I might find is that this report, maybe I want to set the date as last financial quarter, right? Or I want to set the date as last month, you know what I mean? Because it's a live report, so it will actually come up. Link name, we'll just say report, the page link. So I just literally paste that and then I save it. Now what I can see down the bottom here is I've actually got a task. It's like a little workflow. Geo report with GST and tax code. So this is something to do with my to-do checklist maybe at the end of the quarter. So you can actually start to create replicable workflows, right? So if I click that, it's going to take me to that exact date range that I've specified and the exact customizations that I've left on there. GST and tax code. Pretty cool. So that's actually books review. That's one part of it there, obviously. That's on the transaction level, but you'll see there's actually a couple of different stages up the top here, right? So there's transaction review. There's obviously that'll take care of on a transaction level, like I mentioned. And then there's also account reconciliation. So this is going to let you know when it's been reconciled through till, whether or not it's been reconciled, how many transactions are yet to go. Like I said, this to-do checklist is absolutely fluid, right? So you can actually set up any kind of workflow with regards to reconciliation. You can run a different report and cut and paste that across. Because what you'll find is, depending on which subscription you're logged into, those criteria in that report will apply to the subscription that you're actually logged into, which is pretty cool. So that's a neat trick that you're now, I suppose, probably aware of, which is good if you weren't already. Obviously, account reconciliation is more about reconciling. Final review, here's a couple of things. So this might just be that you've got a couple of different reports you want to have a look at, and then you've got prepared to lodge. Right, so that's obviously the GST Center. I'm not going to cover that hugely today. There's a lot of resources about the GST Center at the moment. There's actually a bit of work being done in that area too. What you will see though is this books review and this overview button that I'm going to show you is accountant only view, right? So that's only if you've got QBOA or QuickBooks Online Accountant access, right? So accountant's a bit of a misnomer, obviously. Advisor is probably a better term, but that's just the purpose of giving you supervisory access to your client subscriptions. So that's a little bit on books review. The overview tab serves a similar purpose, right? So this is just a high level view, a snapshot perhaps, of what's going on inside your subscription. So here's my banking activities, some common issues perhaps, different things there. This is pretty neat as well, right? So transaction volume. So if I actually wanted to see roughly how much work I've got to maybe do or how much has been done, perhaps this client's just, a new client who's on QuickBooks, I can have a look. How many bank account transactions in that time period for last financial year, perhaps? 489, right? You have to forgive me, it's a bit of a demo file, so there's a few odd numbers floating around, but I think that serves a purpose to give you a bit of a snapshot to see which apps are connected, what they're actually using, whether they've enabled the GST Center, things like that. So this could be very, very useful. There's a couple of other things I want to show you as well, as far as tips and tricks and things that often come up from firms and feedback and things like that float through. One of them is to do with the banking screen. So this is actually quite a recent-ish feature. It's called grouping. Now what you'll see here is just a wall of transactions perhaps, which is, well, probably to be expected. If you hope it doesn't get too high, but if it does, you can find if you have a fix-up job or someone comes in and they haven't done any bank coding or anything like that for an extended period, you'll get a situation like this when you might drag and drop a CSV for a period, or you've connected an account and there hasn't been any bookkeeping done for a while. One of the ways that makes it a lot easier to actually categorize or code things to the ledger is going to be through a new feature which is called grouping. Now grouping is quite cool in that it's pretty powerful. So it actually help you sort out all of these repeated transactions over a period of time and actually bulk code them. So if I click on this little cogwheel, I see all my bank feed options. What I've got here is I've got copy bank detail to memo, which is always a nice thing to do. And you've also got show bank details, right? So that's the effect there. I'll definitely have that ticked as well. Now if I turn on grouping, watch what happens. What I've got now is all of my transactions or my similar transactions have been grouped together, and it actually gives me the ability to go through and get rid of the easy ones. So that's actually pretty cool too. So that's a feature that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's quite hidden away, but it's definitely, you've got to take a bit of a look for it, right? It's actually in this take a tour button as well. That'll actually show you a little bit of resource on there too. So if you click on the cogwheel and you turn on grouping, that's a great place to start. Look, I'd love to hear your feedback about that feature because that's quite a crowd pleaser for those that do use it. So now the other thing that I was going to walk everyone through was sorry about that pause, just had a little bit of an issue there. The other thing I was going to walk everyone through was a little bit on some off-label usage of some of the tools that we already have here in QuickBooks. So if you actually head up over to the Accountant Tools section, what you'll find is there's a couple of different things in here, and this is obviously a new place to catch books review, right? Which is obviously going to be this client's review screen, which we had a look at. But there's also Reclassified Transactions. Now, this is useful for a couple of reasons. A lot of people will log into this and they'll say, oh, well, you know, all my bank coding should be accurate and that kind of stuff. That's fair enough. Depending on, I suppose, your engagement with your client, it could vary. Another thing that I use or I recommend to a lot of advisors to use this as is almost as a spot check, right? It's an easy way for you to review the contents of the ledger and all of the activity that's gone through that for a time period. So in this example, I've got my reclassified transactions, my date set there. What I can do is I can actually click through, right, P&L and balance sheet on a cash accrual basis, and I can actually inspect to see what's going on with all of these transactions that have come through, right? You'll notice that this is probably not a replacement, but it's a nice way to diagnose if there's anything that is worth further investigation. What you'll find is that a lot of things are easily sortable, right? And the cool thing is the difference and the big value of being able to use this tool instead of using maybe a balance sheet or a P&L and clicking through line by line is that when you get to the end of it, you can actually do something with the data. So whereas when you're doing like a journal kind of report, you can click in one by one and change the destination, absolutely. But if you're looking for something that's snappy, that will actually show you the contents, and I mean, if you should look at how quickly that loads, right? That's a huge benefit. Cool thing here is I can also diagnose whether or not my GST has gone through the right way, or whether or not my memo and description are consistent with what I would hope for in that account. So if I click up and down here, let's just say, oh, well, hold on, this looks a bit weird. All of that GST is all different. Why is that? Not really sure. What I'll do is I'll literally click these three, and I'll reclassify them in bulk. And that's exactly how you would use that as well in order to actually reclassify. But the off-label use of this really is a nice, simple ledger review, which is actually quite powerful. So that's a little bit on there. There's some other stuff in here as well, if you weren't aware as well, under Accountant Tools. And you'll notice that these dates were set when I signed in. For those of you who use QuickBooks already, you might be used to running a couple of different reports and choosing dates and things like that. So I'm just going to open this one in a new tab, right? What I've actually done before is I've actually pinned the dates of my reports by using reports options. So if you're working on a quarterly period or something else like that, then what you can do is actually pin the dates of those reports so that the reports you do run, which are out of here, right? So if I use let's just use a P&L, just drag it to the top, go new tab, and that'll open that up, right? But the dates for the P&L are frozen, which is quite nice. So that's just a little way to kind of avoid clicking through. I mean, having to go all the way through here and choose every single time, it can catch up, right? So that's just a little bit of a tip there as well. I hope that's useful. And it's just a couple of things. Obviously, it's not nothing, horribly crazy. If you weren't aware of it, I'm glad that you are now. But it's just a few little tips and tricks and things like that to hopefully ease your usage and show you a few new things as well. With that, I'd love to throw to Andrew to walk us through LodgeiT, which would be great. Thanks, Andrew.
No worries, Aaron. Let's kick this off.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just love to. Sorry about that. There we go. Awesome.
Thanks.
So I'll just play that one there.
So let's take a look around LodgeiT, folks. We've got a dashboard view over here, and you'll notice the interface is different when we go to dashboard view. But if we head over here and we search for a client, so you're searching for clients in the top left, same as you do in QuickBooks, we can see now we've got a view for the client where we've got the tools for the client. you've got the controls for the accounting firm along the top here, or the bookkeeping firm, and we'll certainly come back to these controls in a moment, but let's head back to the dashboard and have a look at the dashboard that's probably most of value to yourselves, which is the Forms dashboard. What you'll notice is that you've got a new tab on the Forms dashboard, and the new tab is really all forms that are loaded for you in your bookkeeping practice for a given time frame. So for the given time frame is the financial year, and it's the lodgement cycle for the last financial year, plus whatever activity statements coming up on the time horizon. So let's have a look at activity statements. These are the ones that are on the go now, or will have to be, given the dates, right? So we can work our way through these activity statements, and typically we don't work our way through the activity statements from here. What we do is we search for the client and work on the activity statement there. So I might actually jump straight into an activity statement so you can see how this works. So we've got a demo family trust here, and what I will do is I will see if I've got any new. Now, because it's demo, I'm not seeing it as new, but I can certainly add the activity statement in, and it'll call the ATO, and the ATO will tell us what activity statements are due. So we've got a July to September activity statement. We create the pre-fill on this. Notice it's got the DIN number on it already. Give it a chance to load that in, and you'll see the form loads. Essentially grab that form from the ATO, but as I said, you're generally going to have your forms in the system when you start. So when we start with this form, we can then go through the process of working with the form, and we will fill this form. Now we could just manually key the data, or we can pull it in from QuickBooks. So I click the QuickBooks button and I'm pulling in the data for the demo, and we'll see what that data looks like when it splashes into the form. So you can see this is now pulled in from QuickBooks. PAYG value, okay, so there's only a small amount of W1, no W2 there, and the summary values, which is the GST. Now, one thing to note is that the values that come through will not pick up any backward adjustments. So if you're using QBO with backward adjustments, we don't currently support that. We do plan to support in the future. So historical adjustments where adjustments are made to the QuickBooks data file for transactions prior to the time frame. So anything prior to July to September 21, as you know, QuickBooks has the capability of picking up those GST values and including them into the current time frame. That's not currently working like that. Anyway, the system will pick up any errors, and then you can certainly navigate in and resolve the error. So we're trying our best to clear out all the errors, and then you can complete the form, not a problem. So once the form is completed, you'll notice that the form is locked. And if we went into the forms over here, we'll notice that we've got one completed form here. And if we went to the dashboard, noting that generally we would be starting from new, obviously this form wouldn't be under drafting, it would be under completed now. So we could look under completed and we would expect to find it there, which it is. Something else to notice about the dashboard is as you're working on your forms and the forms are transversing left to right, you do have a lot of filters in here. So if there's too many forms in here to actually find what you're looking for, use any of these filters to filter back down to what you need to see. So if you're just looking for the activity statement, there the activity statements are, and we've got our demo family trust statement completed with an audit trail. So let's jump across to that activity statement again and have a look at what some of the other functionalities are for this form. Pre-lodge means that the ATO has actually accepted that this form is valid, and it means that when you lodge it, you won't have any errors. Pretty much guarantees that. So we do have the ability to have a look at the audit trail, and you can see everyone who's involved in the process and what's actually happening through the steps. We'll come back to this later once I've sent this form off for signing. So you could also at this stage delete the form, but you wouldn't be able to delete it without unlocking it, and you wouldn't be able to unlock it unless you've got the right permissions. I will get to the point in this where we can have a look at the permissions for this form. Okay, so let me now send it for signing. I'm sending this to myself so you can see what this looks like. I'm going to pick up my date of birth through this process. Notice that Notice the message is predetermined and completed for us. We don't have to write anything here. And we'll see in a moment what that looks like. But now that the signature, the e-signature request has gone, the status has changed. So now you can see that this is out to sign. If we have a look at forms over here, we can see the status has changed to out to sign here, and it's awaiting signature by the person who has to sign it. And if we go back to the dashboard, have a look in there, now you can see this is out to sign here, right? So let's have a look at what that looks like in my inbox. Right, so here it is, it's arrived. Notice that it's actually come from me, and I'll show you how this works, because inside of LodgeiT you can set it so that it comes from your email address. The client doesn't see anything with LodgeiT, they see everything resolving around your accounting firm. So your accounting firm logo, your accounting firm colors, and if we read through here, it picks up the right date for the activity statement, it picks up the right amount payable, and now we can just proceed. Notice that it's got the details for your, sorry, I shouldn't say accounting firm, bookkeeping firm. But regardless, it's pretty much exactly as we would hope. And here we go with the signature aspect. So we can certainly, as the client, now we're emulating what the client sees, right? You'll notice that it's got BPay details, it's got everything in here the client needs to see. The client can certainly have a good look through that, make sure they're happy with that, and then get started. It's a very simple process. They can click it in, they can type it in. So let me just try to put in some nice little signature there, and continue and agree. So that's essentially the signing process completed by the client. We'll head back into the LodgeiT dashboard, so back to the forms dashboard. So it's out to sign right now. I'm just going to keep reloading this so that it does take a moment for that signature to come back. So now you can see that that is signed, right? One more thing that happens is the client gets another email. It's the client, don't forget I'm emulating being the client here. The client gets another email which says thanks for signing, and here's a copy of your signed BAS. So let's have a look at what that looks like from the client perspective. Client downloads this, and sure enough, they've got a copy of their activity statement that they signed, and it's got a full audit trail on the back end. So all of this functionality is already included inside of the LodgeiT system. No need to strap on another application to get this to work. So we can see that that form is now signed, and then you as the BAS agent can tick and then sign and lodge. So in this case, you're using your digital signature, which is your MYGov ID essentially in the background, to sign and lodge. I'm not going to do that now because I'm just using that as a demo, but essentially that sort of shows you the process. Now, if we did go back into the demo, entity and we had a look in the files, what we would find is that we've now got that signed activity statement. So you do get file storage, you get copies of your activity statements that are saved in here, and you're able to come in here and save any of the other documents that you feel like that you need to save against the client. So full document storage for all of your clients. Now, if we had a look at that activity statement, what do we see? We see it's the same one, right? Same one with the same audit trail, showing when it was sent, who it was sent to, who viewed it, who signed it. So that's pretty much the workflow for activity statements, and you can see that's not too complex. And as I mentioned, you're doing your tracking off of your forms dashboard, and you're seeing where this tax form gets up to. But your next step in the process would obviously be to lodge, in which case it would end up in the lodged bucket. Now, when our system is very busy, you could find that forms sit in the lodging bucket for, could be up to half an hour to an hour. Really depends on how busy the system is. But eventually the form will get fed out of the LodgeiT and sent across to the ATO. When you do use the system, you can happily go along and have a look in the ATO portal. If first couple of times you really want to get some confidence, have a look. You'll find the form goes straight into the portal. Now I'm going to jump across and show you how you can use the working papers. So I've got a couple of companies here that I can use as a demo. And once again, you'll notice that as you move into the client, the dashboard changes and you can see all the settings for the client. And then what you do have here is you do have the ability to use LodgeiT as a type of a CRM. So you can store all the details about the client, all the client's details that are relevant. If you're just doing activity statements, you're not going to need the tax file number, but you could certainly put the other details in. And you'll see that you've got contact details here and primary signatory details. Again, you could have a company in this, which would essentially be emulating a small CRM. You could have the company and then you could have the individual. Now notice that these are individuals in the system, and then the individual becomes the signatory, and the signatory is the person that ends up receiving the emails with the request for sign. So you could have as many people as you need associated with this company. Over here you've got people. Now people is not for your clients, and it's not for the signatories on any of your clients if those signatories are all individuals. This is in the case where you need to store contact details for maybe for the accountant or the bank manager or something like that. Tax probably not going to be relevant because unless you're storing EFT details, you shouldn't need that. And you will find that you do have manage access. So if you've got certain clients in your client list who you don't want your team members to gain access to, you could certainly come and drop them in here. And the easy way to do that is just put their name in here. So if it's just Andrew that's got access to that, to this client, just add the name. Now what we'll do is we'll work with importing the financials. So this is if you want to create a set of working papers. Now what I've done is I've already used this for a demo, but what I'll do is I'll remove the data and I'll show you how you can delete data out of LodgeiT. It's pretty easy. So we'll just delete out the years in question. And now we're back to a blank slate. Now what I'll also do is go to the settings and the import, and I'll remove the connection so you can see the connection all the way through. So to do that import, before I do the import, one more thing I'll do is I'll make sure that the working papers for the year in question are removed. So you can remove working papers if you have the right permissions. Actually there's none here, but I'll certainly unlock those and just remove the template. So now that that template is, you'll see I've got that cross button, and I can remove the working papers if they were not to be needed. So back to financials, and we're going to do our import now. So QuickBooks. You only have to do this once. Once you've connected the entities, you don't have to worry about it again. And you can use the same approach for connecting to MYOB, Xero, MYOB Account Right Live, MYOB Essentials. And this is your connection process. And then you can choose your years to bring in. We don't currently support other time frames, but we will in due course support other time frames. So you could bring in by month or quarter. Currently it's just years. So what have we done? We've brought in a balance sheet and a profit and loss. So if we had a look at QuickBooks, we would find that these reports are exactly the same, at least in terms of the naming conventions and the values. And then we can go to work with our working paper module. Select the year you want to work on. It does say accountant, but you can, it'll work perfectly well if you're a bookkeeping firm. You can use one or two reviewers if you like, or no reviewers, just have yourself as a reviewer, which is what I've done in this case. So really the purpose of this is to store your reference documents, and the easy way to do that is you can either just do an upload from your desktop, or you can bring in from the library. So in this case the library is the file store. Remember, this is the spot where the where the files, the digitally signed files that your clients have signed show up and get stored. But you can also obviously, as I mentioned, load your own files in there, and then you can select them out through from the library, which is from there. So if we've got a bank statement, which is our bank statement evidence for the time frame, we would now attach it. You could click on it and you could view it. Now we would have a value in there, and we would know that value by looking at the bank statement. Hopefully it's the same, and if not, then hopefully you've got a bank reconciliation that you can interpose between the value and your bank statement. If there was outstanding checks or deposits, you'd also need to have a bank reconciliation. So you as the person preparing the work have ticked it, goes green. Absolutely no need to reference every line item. It's simply a case of referencing line items which from your point of view create risk for the work that you do, and where you like to keep evidence that you completed a particular piece of work like a reconciliation. So once this reconciliation is done, and I've pretty much added reference documents to all the line items where it's relevant, then what I can do is I can complete that task, which is the reconciliation task. So now what we'll notice is that that task is now completed, and those working papers are in a completed state. If I was to go to the dashboard I'd go to would be either working papers or work. So work is like a composite, and which for yourselves would be tax forms and also any working papers that you chose to use from the LodgeiT system. So in this case, we know that that would now be in a completed state, and if we wanted to filter across this, we might filter by working papers. Now that's on review, because completed is the equivalent of on review. Now, whomever in the bookkeeping firm is completing the review can then come along, open those working papers, and they're good to go in terms of doing their check. So what does checking mean? Just making sure that the job was done right and double check the values, maybe check the reference document, open that up, and then check through whichever other line items have reference documents against them, and then head out and just approve. So you'll notice that when you approve, whomever's carrying out the approval step, the documents, or at least the working papers, are locked, can't be changed. So now if we went back to working papers here, we'll see that they're finished and completed. And if we went back to dashboard, we could go and have a look in the working papers dashboard, and we'd see that they are finished here as well. So here they are in a completed state. So there's a few different places where you can sort of keep track of what's going on with your working papers. Now you can see working papers are useful, but they'd be a lot more useful if you had some tools to go along with them. And now what I'm going to do is show you the tools. So we'll go back to the client, and inside of the client here we'll have a look at what tools we have available. Some of these you may or may not use, so you do have access to these tools, and certainly you've got access to hire purchase tools, borrowing cost calculator tools. So let's have a look at the hire purchase tools. Sure you have clients that take out hire purchases from time to time. So inside of the hire purchase tool you can attach a copy of the contract. So in this case we've got a copy which is not really a contract, it's just a dummy document that I put there, but you can certainly attach a copy of the contract. You can drop in the values and the variables, whether the hire purchase is in arrears or in advance. Add in your balloons. You don't necessarily need to link it to the fixed asset, but that's only if you've got the depreciation toolkit in use. And then what you can do is when you've entered these values, you can go and have a look at the hire purchase detail. So if you had more than one HP, you'd be able to reach through and select which one you wanted to look at by using this search capability. When you're inside of here, what you're seeing that you've got a start date, an opening balance, and of course the amortization of the hire purchase with the repayment staying constant through the 60 timeframes. In this case, no balloon, and you're heading close to zero. And the system is telling you how much interest you need to process each month, which is each reporting time frame or repayment time frame. So it is possible that you may not have the interest rate. If you don't have the interest rate variable, you can certainly use our other tool, which is the missing interest rate tool, which is over here in the knowledge base. So let's have a look and see. Find the interest rate for the hire purchase calculator. And you can see here, we've now gone into our help guides, and we've got quite an extensive set of help guides. But you can certainly see that over here, if you're missing that interest rate, we've got a calculator which would allow you to input the amount you borrowed, the number of payments, the frequency of those payments, whether they're in advance or in arrears, time frames, daily, weekly, monthly, and any balloons, and then you can make a call and the system will derive the missing interest rate variable, which, if you're a mathematician, you know there's a formula that you can use for that. But essentially this input sheet is allowing you to find that missing interest rate variable. So just to go through that again, the help guide through there, right, through to the knowledge base. And I'll just take this as an opportunity just to show you what we've got in the knowledge base. So obviously you can search across the top of the knowledge base, but if we go down and into the knowledge base, we've got help topics which will be relevant for pretty much everything that you'll use the system for. So something like e-signing, you can see here we've got 10 articles on that. General settings, 38 articles. Practice settings, email settings, because I'm going to get to the email in a moment. Checklists, we've got year-end checklists in here which we've put in recently. You're welcome to take those and use those. Help guides on all the forms. So if you're using something like an activity statement, a PAYG return, you can see we've got 14 help articles. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding your way around. But if you do, if you get stuck, don't hesitate to reach out to support. Drop in the problem. You can even take a screenshot to show support what screen you're looking at. And then our support team will get back to you in about 30 to 40 minutes. When they get back to you, they'll either come back to you with a solution to your problem, or they'll set up a go-to meeting so they can have a look at your screen with you and help you resolve any of the issues. So here we are now. We've had a look through the HP calculator, and as I mentioned, we do have the file storage, and any of the documents associated with the HP will also end up in the file storage by default. We've got notes, so you're welcome to use our notes feature where you can store notes against the given client. And in terms of another set of functionalities that may be useful for Bookkeeper, I'll head over here and just show you how you can use the GST Trade Analyzer. So we've got a set of tools in here for activity statement analysis. And some of you may have done this kind of thing with a spreadsheet before. So let's have a look at last financial year, or the year before actually. But needless to say, the activity statement values per the ATO activity statement are not manually keyed, they're coming in from the activity statement. So here's the activity statement that filled the grid and gave us a total for the year, which I guess we could compare against the accounts at the end of the financial year. Per accounts, yes, currently you need to key these values in, but we will soon have it so that with QuickBooks, this is a feature that we'll introduce in the future, the values from QuickBooks will be collected automatically as well. So eventually you'll end up with a completed grid and you'll see any variance. Now you'll notice that this is a complete comparison between the per activity statement and the per GST values coming out of the accounting software. So currently there is no variance or $1 variance, but if we were to look time frame by time frame, now the variance for June, there was a variance, and there was a variance, and actually there's a variance for almost every month. And this is just the case with a lot of clients. You hope that you've closed off the time frame for the quarter or the month. Somehow they managed to drop something back into into the previous time frame. So what have we done here to resolve this? What we've done is we've simply opened that June activity statement and made an amendment. Actually, in this case, we've amended it 3 times. But regardless, we've got it so that our GST, that was the most up-to-date set of GST values from the activity statements matched, sorry, the most up-to-date set of values from the GST module in the accounting software match the ATO values from the activity statements. Now, as I mentioned, you know that with QuickBooks, QuickBooks does have a function which allows a sort of a drag back. So if there is an adjusting entry into a previous time frame, it'll pick it up into the latest activity statement. Obviously, this is a different method. So this is, I guess, a method that doesn't take that into account. And as I also said, currently the LodgeiT activity statement doesn't pick up those backward adjustments. So this is actually the only method you can currently use to gain confidence with what you're lodging from a GST perspective. Right, so pretty much I've showed you the functionality that is relevant to you and your bookkeeping practice with respect to finding your way around LodgeiT, using the dashboards, using the tools for the client, and then finally is just to note that you've got your controls for the firm up here, for your bookkeeping firm. So ATO, software ID, definitely it's your first step. You'd need to grab this software ID, copy that, head over to the ATO Access Manager, search for LodgeiT, and then link that number to the LodgeiT record so that the system will start to work. Now that's not going to work unless, of course, you've gone in and added the profile for your firm. So you'll notice that this is the name of your bookkeeping practice or firm up here. The profile is the details for your firm in terms of contact details, ABN, etc. And over here, when we have a look at settings, what we're looking at is we're looking at settings from the point of view of settings for the firm. So this is where you would manage your branding. You can upload your logo if you want your logo to head out with your e-sign requests. If you don't like our client, if you don't like our client defaults for the language that goes out with the activity statement, you could certainly come down here, and obviously you won't have all these forms to worry about in the bookkeeping version. But if you went into the activity statement, you can come and change the language that goes with the automated email. It's up to you to change that, but just be careful with the preset notations to what's in the database, because otherwise the system won't pick up the values from the database. Email settings, you can come and link your own email system. I like 365, I think that's the best email system on the market, but you can certainly use Gmail, not bad. And if you've got some other mail server provider, probably you've got an SMTP set of mail settings that you'd need to drop in there. If you don't have any email, which would be unlikely, then you can just let everything ride out with the LodgeiT email. But anyway, I use the 365 version. Now, finally down to here, Client Sync. Client Sync is all about synchronizing your contact details through to QuickBooks Online Accountant. So as you know, QBOA, free software that's given to bookkeepers and accountants, and you can use that free software for your own practice, and I certainly do. You can see I've linked my clients through. So it happens that I don't synchronize all my clients, I only synchronize my billing clients, and this tool makes this super easy. Once my clients are synchronized, then I can be confident that the email addresses inside of QBOA stay up to date with what I have in LodgeiT. The same with the physical addresses. So let's just head back into the settings in case I missed anything in there. Client defaults. Client default is defaulted to the date of birth. You saw me use a date of birth for my test today for the demo, sending out that activity statement for signing. The rest of this you probably don't need to worry too much about, except that ATO software ID, which you can also access from over there. Now, you do have billing. If you like the product, you can buy it, but if you're coming through from QuickBooks, you can certainly access LodgeiT for free as a bookkeeper. So ask your friendly QuickBooks sales rep and they'll certainly give you more information on the free version. Organisational log is security based for the practice, and over here, up here under your own name, you'll have another log which is also security based. I won't go through any of that in detail because we're rapidly running out of time here. But essentially, that is LodgeiT in a nutshell, and I think I've showed you everything that's of interest. I'll hand back to Aaron. So let's take.
There we go. That
Great.
was awesome. Very, that's all right. very detailed. Hope there was some good value in there.
The analysis comparison report is great. Love that. Yeah.
Joe?
That's definitely something we usually have to do on a spreadsheet, isn't it? So that's very cool having that built in. I just wanted to clarify what you said at the end there. So about the billing. So if someone is a QBO ProAdvisor already, they get LodgeiT for free. Is that correct?
Aaron, I think Aaron will let you know about the program that allows a bookkeeper to secure that access, Joe.
Let's hear about that. Yeah. And people, if you've got any questions, type them in before we finish up. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I'll skip ahead a couple just anyway, because we can even send through a bit of a summary for product roadmap type stuff if that's of interest to everyone. That's absolutely fine.
Are you talking about product LodgeiT product?
Bit of both. Yeah.
We probably haven't got time because we do need to keep it to an hour. So
that's all right. Just noticed.
But I can, we'll put the recording up on the website as usual. And if there's any links you want me to include, we can do that via email.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just cover off the pricing for bookkeepers.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some stuff to do. There's the ProAdvisor program basically with QuickBooks has been redesigned. So with that comes a whole raft of new inclusions. Among them, like you can see on the screen there, is depending on your tier. And I believe that the tier is based on like a point system, things like certification, subscriptions held, stuff like that. You're actually eligible for a free version of LodgeiT. The good thing about that is that LodgeiT isn't, well, it's not a user count, obviously, that the pricing is determined on, or the SKU that's determined on. It's all about lodgement capacity. So basically, depending on where you are with your ProAdvisor status, I believe it starts at silver, then gold, then platinum and elite, I believe it is. And depending on your point system. Now, the best person to talk to about that, to find out where you're up to and to redeem the token that's available to you, you can either go to that website there, intuit.me/properks, or you can get in touch with your friendly neighborhood account manager, as Andrew mentioned as well.
Okay, and so for people who aren't QBO natives and maybe they're interested in LodgeiT for the work papers and the lodgement capacity, but they've got clients across various other software, would they then be going on the pricing on the website? So BAS agent pricing?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, if they don't have any QBO files, that's probably right, Joe. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. But actually, it is one of those scenarios we actually don't need that many QBO files to secure access to the product. So, if you need a couple of extra cloud files, and that's something we're pretty big on, is that, the future really belongs to those firms that get all their clients onto cloud-based products, just makes their life a whole lot easier. And definitely QBO's got some pretty good value propositions with their data files, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. You've answered Luigi's question. Any other questions, people? Any final queries before we close up? Everyone's a bit quiet today. Usually get a few questions. So as I said, we'll put the recording on the website, a couple of links. I'll email you guys shortly and we'll just refine that. And if people are interested to go further, as you said, talk to their account manager, or we've got lodgeit.net.au you can check out the pricing for BAS agents. So I think that's a wrap. No questions have come in.
Very good.
So thank
Fantastic.
you both, gents. Great to see that in action. Yeah, I think it's great solution. And even if you're not a QBO member, like I was looking at the pricing and comparing it to a couple of other options out there, it's very reasonable. Like it's a really good price. If you're looking for lodgement software, you haven't got all of that, and it's got work papers included. So yeah, I think it's a great offering to check out. Luigi, didn't hear the answer.
Maybe he's hoping that I would say it. Okay,
Yeah.
Luigi, I actually typed it in there. I said when you can either use the client date of birth, which is the default, or you can use a text message. So you can change the settings to a text message if you prefer to use that method, in which case your client will get a text message and they can simply authenticate with the code instead of their date of birth.
Yeah, we did see that right at the end on the
Yep.
on the video. So
yep. So if you want to have a look again, watch the video once Joe puts that up.
Okay. Thanks everybody, and we will see you next month. Again, I can't remember who I've organised, but somebody for sure. So, okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.